Look at the family line of Jesus, and you'll notice something very strange right away. It's not clean, it's not perfect, and honestly, it's kind of messy. And that's exactly why it matters. When people think about Jesus' family tree, they expect it to be full of holy people, perfect leaders, and flawless heroes. But when you actually read the Bible, especially the genealogy in Matthew chapter 1, you find the opposite. You find broken people, bad choices, scandals, and pain. So the big question is this: why would God choose these generations to bring Jesus into the world? Let's break it down slowly and simply. First, let's talk about why genealogies even mattered back then. In Bible times, your family line was everything. It showed where you came from, who you belonged to, and if you had any right to power or leadership. For Jesus to be accepted as the Messiah, he had to come from the line of King David and Abraham. That part makes sense. But here's where it gets shocking. God didn't just pick the royal line, he kept people in that line who most humans would erase from history. Let's start with Tamar. Tamar's story is uncomfortable. She was treated unfairly by her family. She was ignored, pushed aside, and left without protection. In desperation, she pretended to be someone else and slept with her father-in-law Judah. Yes, that's in the Bible. This story is awkward, messy, and full of bad decisions. Yet, Tamar is listed in Jesus' family line. God could have skipped her name, but he didn't. Why? Because her story shows something important. God does not only work through perfect situations, he works through broken ones too. Tamar was wronged, but God still used her to move his plan forward. Next, let's talk about Rahab. Rahab was a prostitute, no way to soften that. In Bible society, she was seen as an outsider, someone people judged and avoided. She lived in Jericho, a city that was about to be destroyed. But Rahab believed in the God of Israel. She helped hide the spies, she took a risk, and because of her faith, she and her family were saved. And guess what? Rahab married into Israel and became part of Jesus' family line. This is huge. God included a woman with a past, a bad reputation, and a job people looked down on. That tells us something loud and clear. God is not scared of your past. Faith matters more than history. Now let's talk about Ruth. Ruth wasn't even an Israelite. She was from Moab, a nation Israel didn't trust. On top of that, she was a widow, poor and powerless. But Ruth made one powerful choice. She stayed loyal to her mother-in-law, Naomi, and followed God, even when it cost her everything. She worked hard, stayed humble, and trusted God step by step. Ruth later married Boaz and became King David's great-grandmother. So what does this tell us? God is not limited by where you come from. Your background, your country, your family name, none of that disqualifies you. Faith and obedience matter more than labels. Now let's get to one of the biggest shocks in the whole list, Bathsheba. Matthew doesn't even use her name. He calls her the wife of Uriah. That's on purpose. King David slept with Bathsheba, who was married to another man. Then David had her husband killed to cover it up. This was abuse of power, betrayal, and sin all mixed together. Most people would try to hide this story forever, but God didn't. Bathsheba's name stays connected to the family line of Jesus. Why would God allow that? Because God doesn't pretend sin never happened. He deals with it, he redeems it, and he shows that even great kings can fall, but his plan still moves forward. Now let's talk about the kings. The genealogy includes some good kings, but also very bad ones. Kings who worshipped idols, kings who hurt their people, kings who ignored God completely. Some of these kings caused the nation to collapse. Some led Israel into exile. And yet, God didn't delete them from the story. This shows us something important. God's promises do not depend on human perfection. Even when leaders fail, God's plan keeps moving forward. Now let's jump to Mary. Mary was young, very young. She was not rich, she was not powerful, she was not famous, and suddenly she was pregnant without being married. In that culture, this could ruin her life. People could shame her, reject her, or worse. But God chose her, not because she was important in the world's eyes, but because she was willing to trust God. Mary didn't have a perfect situation. She had questions, fear, and risk, but she said yes. So when you look at the whole picture, something becomes very clear. God didn't choose a clean family line. He chose a real one, full of sinners, full of outsiders, full of broken stories, full of unexpected faith. This wasn't an accident. God was sending a message before Jesus was even born. Jesus didn't come for perfect people. He came for real people. People with shame, people with regret, people with complicated pasts, people who feel like they don't belong. The family line of Jesus is basically a preview of his mission. Think about it like this. If Jesus came from a perfect family, people would say, of course he's holy, look where he came from. But Jesus came from a messy family, so no one could say, God would never use someone like me. Because he already did. Every name in that genealogy whispers the same truth. God redeems. God restores. God uses broken people to bring hope into the world. So, if you've ever felt like your past disqualifies you, this story says it doesn't. If you've ever felt like you don't fit in, this story says God still sees you. If you've ever thought God only works through perfect people, this family tree destroys that idea completely. This is why God chose these generations, not despite their flaws, but through them. And that's the shocking truth most people miss.